Great. It is. Good evening. If you all would stand with me, please, for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you for this day and for the blessings of life that you give us. Lord, we're thankful for the work and the responsibilities that are also ours. This evening, we need your wisdom and we need your guidance. We ask for a spirit of cooperation and open minds and hearts that we may accomplish your work. Thank you for this responsibility and the awesome burden that it is to serve our community. Thank you for those who are here in attendance. And pray that you will continue to draw more people into your work as we do it here. We love you, God, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. So if I can have your attention, please. It's great to have all the student athletes with us this evening. With us this evening, we've got Ryan Radcliffe and the Parkersburg South swim teams. And we've got Coach Emily Martin with the Parkersburg High School swim teams. And so this evening, we're going to recognize them for the season that they've had. Is Ian Sasson here? Before we do this, Ian, does your dad drive you crazy like he does me? Yes? Good. That's great. Sorry, Henry. So anyway, this evening, this young lady right here in front of us, pick a number between 1 and 10, please. 7. So 5 was my number, so we will start with Parkersburg South. All right? So, Coach, if you'd like to tell us about the season you had, and then we'll honor your students.
Okay. So, again, my name's Ryan Radcliffe. I'm the head coach of Parkersburg South. I've been coaching there for 4 years, and this group on our swim team had a very successful season. Our guys team won the state championship on the team side for the second year in a row. Our girls team made great strides. We had a lot more numbers this year. They finished high in all their relay events. We had all 3 relays in the state meet. They broke a medley relay record for the first time. It was the first time a girls relay record for Parkersburg South has been broken in 14 years. So both guys and girls had an exceptional season, and did a really great job. You mind if I say anything real quick about this kind of climate and swimming?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanna give you guys a little. I want to give you guys a little insight. Just kind of give you from a coach's point of view, the current climate of swimming in the Mid-Ohio Valley. It's a sport that's gaining a lot of popularity. It's growing. Obviously, swimming's been around for a very long time. One of the original Olympic sports. And it's continuing to grow. You're seeing a shift away from the contact sports, and a lot of those kids are gravitating towards swimming as one of those non-contact sports. I know just in our program at Parkersburg South, the last 2 years we've had over 40 kids come out for swimming, and that is a great thing, right? That's a really good thing. The only problem is swimming in the Mid-Ohio Valley is at capacity and beyond capacity. As far as the facilities go, there's only 2 facilities in the Mid-Ohio Valley that can support competitive swimming at this time. That's the Parkersburg Boys and Girls Club and the Parkersburg YMCA. Now, granted, both those facilities are very accommodating to us and do everything that they can to try and give us what we need. However, those facilities are really old, and they're really small. And with the amount of kids that we have swimming right now, it's really stressed. I think the sport of swimming in the Mid Ohio Valley has the potential to be like the sport. It's at a point where it's like it's ready to sprout, it's ready to blossom, it's ready to grow, but it can't. It's limited. It's really limited right now due to the fact that we just don't have the space. We don't have anywhere for these kids to grow and to get better and to make our teams bigger. For example, at the Parkersburg Boys and Girls Club, we have 4 high schools that utilize that swimming pool. It's only 5 lanes, and so there's 4 high schools. It's us, Marietta, Warren, and even Athens comes down and uses that pool when they can't use OU's. And then at the Y, you've got the Parkersburg Sharks club team, which is ages all the way from 4 to up to high school, and you've got to try and fit all those kids plus PHS's swim team in one evening, and not to mention all the other things that the YMCA has to do for their members, such as aerobics and such as all the other things that are associated with a swim pool. So there is not enough space for us to grow. You think about 40 kids in 5 lanes. Think about that. Do the math. That's a lot of kids per lane. That's a lot of congestion, a lot of running into each other, and it doesn't give them an opportunity to really get what they need as far as working out. So one thing I just I'm not. This isn't me trying to bash anybody. This is us trying to come together. You see both teams that are rivalries. They're coming together. They're showing that their friendship, that we need this for our area. We need this for the Mid Ohio Valley. We need a sports facility. We need places to go and swim. So I just ask you to consider that. We've got, in this day and age, you've got remote work where families can easily just get up and move and leave and go somewhere else. There's not a lot of physical locations that's holding people down anymore, and so people are doing that, right? You look at the Bridgeports, you look at the Morgantowns who have these facilities and have these places have these opportunities for their kids. They're going there because it's easy now. And what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see the Mid Ohio Valley fall backwards, which I'm afraid it's already getting to that point. I don't want to see us fall backwards in a way of people leaving. I want people to be able to be proud of this area. I want people to be able to want to stay here and have those opportunities for their families so that they can grow and be successful, just like the places like Morgantown and Bridgeport. So just consider that. And the only way this happens, the only way any of this happens, is we have to come together. And it's not just the swimming community come together. It's everybody. So when I say come together, I mean Vienna, Parkersburg City Council, Wood County Commission, the Board of Education, all of these entities, all these organizations have to come together for this to happen, or it's not going to happen. It'll never happen unless we all work together and we all share that common goal in trying to address this issue. It's something that means a lot to the kids. It means a lot to the future. It means a lot to my kids. I've got a 2-year-old and I've got another one on the way, and I want this bad for our area and for our kids. And it addresses so many things other than just swimming. You look at the problems that we face in our communities, with the opioid pandemic and things like that. We can address this from the front end. This is something that attacks us in the front, as opposed to trying to address it after it happens. These are things that we can really make a big difference in our community. So just consider that moving forward as we go through and make this push and go to these different meetings and try to spread awareness. I just ask you to be open to the idea and try to support that idea and put people forward to make it happen. So thank you. Yeah, guys, come on up.
Are you going to do the names?
Yo, I can do the names or
Guys, line up there.
Yes, you are.
Well, I'm very excited to have you guys here. I'm a Parkersburg South grad, so I'm thrilled to have you here. But I have a Parkersburg high school family, so I'm living on both sides right now. So always conflict is great. So, but congratulations on all your hard work. Ryan Richardson. Andrew Kirk. Anthony Ott. Xander Gunn. Win. Colton Floyd. Maddox Rader. Killian Coster. Wade Harris. Jansen Karcher. Did I get it right?
Yep.
Connor Roberts. Jordan Claypool. Allie Sims. Okay. Hadley Freshour. Veda Hafer. Paige Johnson. Chesney Douglas. And Abby Berner.
She's not here.
All right, very good. I'll give these to the coach.
So who's captain?
Congratulations.
Captains, raise your hand.
Okay, so can you tell us what So this is a back-to-back thing?
Yeah, state champ.
Huh. All right.
Just imagine if they had a huge facility for training.
All right, if you'll step that way, we're going to get a picture of all of you in just a moment.
Okay.
Coach?
Thank you
guys so much. I'm not going to repeat what Ryan said because I don't think I can say it much better than he said it, but you really hit the nail on the head. This is a growing sport in this community. Their boys won the state championship back-to-back. They won again this year. Our boys were third. So when you stop and think about that, 2 of the top 3 teams in the state on the boys' side came from right here in Wood County. Parkersburg South practices at the Boys and Girls Club, and you heard a little bit about their facilities. We practice at the Parkersburg YMCA. We are lucky to have them. They are very good to us and helping us with whatever we need. But like Ryan said, full time is everything. And the Y has the Parkersburg Sharks team that they are serving this community with ages 4 through 18. They have swim lessons, they have all of the other programs going on. And so our team actually practices until 10 o'clock at night, at least once a week. So these kids that you see here, some of them swim for the Sharks, some of them swim with me every single day. They are training until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, almost every single night of the week. And that's just what we have to do to get the full time that we need, to get the training time that we need to serve these kids and get them what they need to do what they go out there and do. And my team is a little bit smaller than Sal's team, and I think a big part of that, maybe I'm just not as good at recruiting through the school as Ryan is and convincing people to come in, but I can't tell you how many kids I've had come in who are interested in swimming, and when they see that practice schedule and they're like, I have to be here till 10 o'clock at night, I'm out. I can't do it. And we're losing so much more potential for how we could serve this sport and serve these kids because of that practice time, because of the demands that it puts on them, on top of what all of these athletes are already giving with their school schedule, their homework, their practice schedule, and all of those things. And so this is, just like Ryan said, this is such a growing sport in this community. This is a sport that is thriving in this community. We are going out there and we are beating teams that do have those practice facilities. But imagine what we could do and the kids that we could serve if we had the access to more, if we had the access to better training facilities, better training times. Just imagine what both of these teams could accomplish, because that's something else that Ryan and I were talking about before the meeting started, that, you know, when we go out there, you know, we want to beat each other, but when we get out of the pool, we're all friends and we're all in this together and we all want to see each other succeed. So I just think that it would be so amazing for this community if we could come up with a way to get a better sports facility, a better training facility. And unlike a lot of sports, you can do some sports if you have a practice facility that doesn't necessarily look like your game facility. You can play baseball in a field, you can practice a little soccer in a field. You can't swim without a pool. You can't train for swim without a pool. And so that is really what we're lacking and what is so important in this community. And I just hope that everyone will take that into consideration as we move forward, and we can really pull together and work together to make something happen for these kids. Just to give a quick highlight on the kids before I let her read off the names and we'll bring the kids up here. Our boys, like I said, were third in the state this year. We're only, I think, 20 some points behind South, who was in first. So it was a really close race. We posted up two of the top 3 teams in the state, right here in Wood County. We were runner up at regionals behind South by about 3 points. We won our conference for the boys. Our girls had an absolute amazing winning season as well. And really throughout all of our invitationals and dual meets, our girls and our boys teams both really just put up some really impressive swims and took down some big teams across the state and put up winning records on both sides. I'm so proud of them and all that they've accomplished. This is absolutely the pinnacle of their hard work and all that they put into this sport and the dedication that they bring every single day. And I'm just so excited. This is the biggest state team we've had. This is my 4th year as head coach, and this is the biggest state team we've had. We took 19 kids to states this year, which was just absolutely insane. So I'm so proud of them and just so excited, and hope the community will look forward to helping us in the future with helping these teams and swimming in this area just continue to thrive.
Congratulations, guys. All right. There you go. All right. Izzy Fairnash. Lily Fairnash. Ryan Musica. Alexa Mayer. Kaylin Morris. Adelaide Mann. Lucian Baumgartner. Did I do it? Eli Brown, Liam Creighton, Matthew James. That was great. How do I say it? Braden Lawton. Okay. Derek Marshall. Ethan Metz. Cooper Morris. Cardi Ramsey. Ian Sasson, and Andrew Schaefer. Congratulations, guys.
Everybody slide. Come over this way, please, Sal. We'll get one picture.
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
Red and white this way.
That's a good idea. We're sitting in front of them.
Emily, did you see?
Have to use a wide lens. Straw.
Might have to make a third round, guys.
Back up.
Okay, you guys with the hardware in the middle. You two.
No, the middle's like.
Lean over into this side, it's all right.
Three.
I thought you were.
What?
I will. I got it right there. Wow. I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for February the 23rd, 2023. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present with the exception of Councilman Bibby and Councilman Leach. Councilman Leach is supposed to call in, so hopefully he'll call in before we get too far into it. First item on our agenda this evening is our public forum. We have 3 people that have signed up to speak this evening, and we'll start this evening with Henry Sasson.
Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenmount Hills Drive here in Vienna. What am I going to talk about? Guess what? Swim. The kids there were phenomenal. And if you guys did have a chance to see them swim someplace, that's great. At the state championship, it went down to event number 22, which was the 400 freestyle relay. And if you recall, at this end of October, I invited everybody, and then through all the meets that they had in weeks that I spoke, I said Parkersburg was going to be number 1 and 2. Don't know who was going to be number 1 and 2. It was number 1 and 3, and I was only off by 8 points on second. So that was pretty close. Phenomenal kids. Now that high school season's finished, we still have club swim. So there's a lot of the kids are still active with club swim. But Ryan and myself and others, we're going to start getting probably about 30 to 35 individuals together from different organizations throughout the Mid-Ohio Valley to start looking at what can we do to put in some type of aquatic facility sports complex. So we're going to be reaching out to get a cross, section of the entire Mid-Ohio Valley over the weeks to come, and then start trying to get meetings together to see what we can do to make a dream come true. So with that, I thank you for the time. Thank you for allowing both teams to come together and show you what they were able to do. Thanks.
Henry, if every group in this town, this community, had the support that you've given these kids for the last 2 or 3 years, everything that we do would be successful. It just takes so much time to put in supporting these kids and all the trips that you've taken and what have you. So I know that means a lot to the kids for you to do that, and we thank you for updating us on their progress. So the kids are our kids. All of them are. So thank you for your interest. All right. Second this evening will be Brenda Powell.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Powell. I live at 1409 31st Street. I wanted to come before council to discuss or to actually mention a few things regarding the ordinance revision. It's 505.06A, hens and residential property. The first part is the permit, actually number 1, in regards to the permits for not only the hen house on the property, but also for the structure. And it doesn't say what it is. It doesn't say how much it's going to cost. It doesn't say anything. Which is very important to know. Structure and location is number 3. It talks about that the hen house will be in an enclosed, and the hens will be kept in a hen house in an enclosed pen. Also, the hen houses have to be for the building code. There's just, there again, we don't know what that will consist of. It's on here, but we have no idea what exactly that you're going to want. Number 4 is limitations. Under B, the maximum of 4 hens to be kept on a lot, and may further limit the number pertaining to health regulations of keeping them. And I have an issue with that too, because there again, we know nothing about what that would consist of, and we need to know. Another thing is, if you don't have roosters, you can't have reproduction of your hens. So that I don't know how that will happen, where that we can repopulate it unless we buy other chicks and start from there. Hens will be confined to a lot, and roosters, and all of those different things. I think that's kind of it's hard for those that have certain things, special birds or whatever. I think that would be hard for them. The flock shall always be confined to the parcel, and the flock shall be confined to the hen, not exceeding 150 square feet in the area during the nighttime hours, which don't see a problem with that. The flight feathers, I don't understand this. You've got the flight feathers, one side's going to be clipped. I don't know what the reason would be for them not being able to be in a fenced-in yard and being able to forage and move around in the yard itself. They can't fly, so why could they not be able to do that? And it does repeat itself a little bit in regards to the property or the lots and things of that sort. It's just repetitive. But I think we do need to have some more information regarding what you are going to do as far as some of these things, and so that the public is more aware of it. I did want to tell you that eggs per day are estimated 2 to 3 eggs per day for 4 chickens, and that depends on the hen. Sometimes they lay every day, sometimes they don't. They molt once a year, and they decrease in the laying of their eggs, during the winter months. And so it's important that we take that into consideration. I know that you have stated that we could have 4 hens, but it might need to be up to 6 so that people have what they need for their families. I wanted to bring up about the Freedom Festival and the budget, where they're having a revision for $27,000 for a rodeo, and I don't see a problem with what things that they're planning. With Friends of Vienna. I just don't understand why everything has to be that day. Why can we not have, maybe that and the balloon rides another time? Why cannot everything that we need or what they're going to have be just on the mall parking lot? These other things could probably be another event to bring people in on Spencer's Landing with, these festivities. And we could have food trucks and things of that sort, and just be an additional type thing. That was just my suggestion. And I'm not sure what the pool discussion's going to be. I hope it'll be interesting to know where we are with things. But that's all I needed to do today. Thank you.
Tammy Rhodes.
Good evening. It's a beautiful day today, wasn't it? I want to talk about Spencer's Landing. The land use covenants went into effect in October 2020. We are now 2.5 years since that time, and we still do not have any definitive plans, and we have not had any development on that property at all. The current status of that property is a real concern. There is standing water all over that area that was filled. Part of that reason, I believe, and what I've read, is that it was filled with clay, and then it was compacted with heavy equipment time and time and time again, which reduces the air in that and doesn't allow it to drain. They filled up the ravine, and they also packed it in the natural drainage ditch. So all of that keeps that water from draining, and you have got standing pools of water all over Spencer's Landing. It's a real concern to me because that is going to have to be fixed. You know, we're planning on putting an amphitheater in. We're planning on putting a walk around Spencer's Landing. We're planning on, road sort of to the amphitheater so bands can get their equipment. There is no way you can do any of that with the status of that land right now. I have issues too with the costs that we've already put out. If I'm adding everything up, we're at least at a minimum of $125,000, and that doesn't include the water lines. That's just removing the trees, bringing in the fill dirt, grading it, the cost of the employees, the cost of their benefits, the hours that they put in, the burning of the trees that the city employees did. That's a lot of money. And now we're looking at having a rodeo there that's going to cost a ton of money, and we don't have that money to spend. We need to put it towards doing something to help Spencer's Landing, in my opinion, start being developed. Someone that I know, Joshua Ankrum, asked me to bring up the hazard of the riverbank. We've owned that property since 2014, and that riverbank is still the same mess that it was in 2014. There's concrete blocks, there's metal, there's sharp objects, there's trees, branches. It's a liability waiting to happen. And I think that it's time to spend some money cleaning up that riverbank and figuring out how to stabilize it. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I haven't heard it brought before council. Starting last year, I started talking and asking about the land use covenants and whether they if the whole property was covered, and I've done that in this meeting. And each time that I brought that up, I was told no, it only affects those 6 engineering controls. Well, I finally got past Eric Hancock at the West Virginia DEP, and his supervisor, Erin Britton, sent me an email after I emailed her with specific questions, including what was covered under the land use covenants, what parts of the property, the templates and the instructions that I brought before council before, ask her why we don't have those. And she sent me an email back, and she said, I'm going to answer your first question, and that will answer everything else. Yes, the entire property of Spencer's Landing is under the land use covenants. So I wanted to bring that forward. I think it's time for the public to know that the whole property is considered contaminated, just not 6 areas. So, digging in the dirt and all that other stuff is restricted. Anything we do down there is going to have a permit, and I'm just not sure why the public was not notified on your end about this being restricted. Because I know Erin Britton has said that she was going to call the mayor as well as Tom Rebar that same day. So, I have a question, but I think the public has a right to know how contaminated that is. Thank you.
Ms. Rhodes, it really upsets me when you come in and you make these statements when We've been working on that same piece of property for years now. And unfortunately, Mrs. Britton did not call me, but Mr. Leach and myself have been involved with that parcel of ground since day one. And I can tell you without a fact that those 6 areas that are sectioned off are the only areas that have the restrictive covenants on them. The rest of that property can be used for recreational purposes. And so we've hidden nothing from anyone in the public. And it bothers me when people that are not knowledgeable come in and make these statements that are not true. So, no, you may not. The minutes from the council meeting held on February the 16th, 2023 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. The report of the treasurer will be given at the first regular meeting in March. Under unfinished business this evening, we have an ordinance on second reading, creating utility restoration details, setting out utility restoration details for sidewalk replacement, asphalt overlay, and resurfacing heel-in type E, pavement trench, concrete pavement, type C pavement trench, asphalt concrete pavement, type A pavement trench, and asphalt over concrete or brick. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that whereas the City of Vienna does not presently have specifications for the repair, replacement, or restoration of asphalt over concrete or brick, asphalt concrete pavement, resurfacing heel-ins, and sidewalk replacement as it relates to roads, streets, or ditches that are to be repaired, restored, or replaced due to infrastructure and utility-related projects. It hereby adopts the following. There are several instances where it is detailed, but I will entertain a motion on second reading for the approval of the ordinance creating utility restoration details.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance creating utility restoration details on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ordinance on second reading, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Second item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on second reading, amending 923.01 public utilities, changing the continuing bond amount from $10,000 to $50,000. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it amends 923.01 public utility to post bond to pay for damages to public property. City notification required as follows. Every public utility provider shall execute a continuing bond in a form prescribed and accepted by the City Finance Director with satisfactory corporate surety in the amount of $50,000 payable to the City of Vienna. The remainder of the ordinance remains unchanged. I'll entertain a motion for the approval on second reading of the ordinance amending 923.01 public utilities.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance amending 923.01. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. We move to new business now. Item number 1 is the general fund budget revision number 4. This is an internal budget revision. There is no new money to be allocated here. It is simply taking money out of line items where there's an excess amount in it and making a contribution to the Friends of Vienna for the rodeo project that they have going this summer in conjunction with the Freedom Festival. 912-12 printing, $2,000. 912-19 rents, $800. 912-20 legal publications, $9,000. 912-23 professional services, $6,800. 912-30 $1,400. 912-41, materials and supplies, $7,000. That totals $27,000, and that amount of money would be switched over to line item 607-68. In my conversation with the event planner, every item that we have scheduled for the remainder of the year remains intact. No events will be canceled, shortened, or in any way affected by this adjustment. This is simply, these are excess amounts that were in the event planning line item. And so I would entertain a motion for the approval of general fund budget revision number 4.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve general fund budget revision number 4. Is there any discussion?
Is there someone here to speak on this tonight from the Friends of Vienna?
That would be me.
Okay. Well, I'm having a hard time with this, primarily because, you know, it's a $27,000 request. We're not going to be made whole in any way. And then there's all these undisclosed costs. For example, you know, the in-kind from the city of Vienna, the employees. I have questions about the 8 inches of dirt that are going to be put down on Spencer's Landing, how much that's going to cost to implement that, how that's going to be restored after the rodeo is over, Spencer's Landing. I mean, we're going to leave 8 inches of dirt on, you know, a rodeo in place. I hope not. I would think that it would be taken down. I think there's, I mean, I just have a lot of questions. I'm surprised there's not somebody here from Friends of Vienna to answer them.
Kim, because I'm the one that brought this forward, and I'm the one that's requesting your all's approval to put this event on, I'm the one you need to ask the questions of.
Okay. Well, okay, I'll start with my first question. How much is it going to cost to put in the dirt, the 8 inches of dirt that they need for the rodeo?
We, our public works guys will do that. There should not be any cost except for the amount of labor where we dump it down and spread it.
Well, okay, but that seems like it's not a job that's going to be done like in a few hours. And so, I mean, I think you're minimizing the cost of this. I'm trying to get the full picture of what this is going to cost, because it's way beyond the $27,000 that's being requested.
You know, it's one of those things where this is an event that no one around us has done. And I think it's exciting because it's very unique. And so the contribution that the city would make in promoting this event will bring a lot of people in here for this event. And so, you know, economic development, showing off what, you know, how nice, how clean our city is. I think that that's an investment that we as a city should be making to show people that not only we're a great place to live and a very clean place to live, but we have fun. So the cost that's involved in our contribution to this project is something that I think is like throwing the welcome mat out to say, please come and look at the things that the city of Vienna is interested in doing.
Well, to that regard, I don't disagree with you. I mean, we're getting ready to have the Freedom Festival again this year, and Rodney spoke last week about all the entertainment that was going to be brought in. Seems exciting. It's going to be a 2-day event, free to the community. The other thing about this event is that it is not a free event. You're going to have to charge $15 per person for an adult to get into it. So you're using public money and public land to do something, you know, that's not free. And that's kind of an issue for me. But regardless, I think Vienna is definitely being showcased by the Freedom Festival, which we supported last year, and I anticipate that it'll be supported again this year. So I don't understand why we go from Friday and Saturday. We've put in the money for the, you know, our contribution into the Freedom Festival. We're supporting that, not only with our contribution, but to the in-kind donation through the employees that will work. So last Freedom Festival, it was well over $10,000. And, you know, at that time I asked about that and wasn't given an answer about it. But I followed up later, that was $10,000. And then, so we have something scheduled Friday and Saturday, and this is an event on Sunday. And it seems like a lot of events, a lot of expense for an area that probably isn't well suited at all for a rodeo. You know, I know Washington County's had rodeos. They also have a fairgrounds, perfect place for a rodeo. But Spencer's Landing is not a perfect place for a rodeo.
Yes, sir, Tom?
Do the people coming in to do the rodeo, do they can see?
Yes, they've been down many times to visit the site. The footprint of the actual rodeo arena itself will not require a lot of site prep. The ground down there is hard, and so, we're going to put in some softer dirt so that, the animals will be protected. And it is a perfect site, okay? And they're very excited to come. It's a professional rodeo circuit, and so you should see quality competitions, and I believe they've already had 17 barrel racers sign up to come, and they'll have the full rodeo. Okay, so it's a professional show, so I believe it will be very well received. Yes, sir, Chris?
I have a few questions if I can. I kind of would have to agree with Kim. It seems like we're agreeing to, put forward another $27,000. We've already agreed to give $25,000 to the Friends of Vienna, and I agree the Freedom Festival was a wonderful event that was held last year. It was amazing. But we're basically doubling our contributions to add one more event to an entire weekend of events. So that seems like it's a little bit heavy of a cost up front. But I guess some of the questions I have to follow up on Kim is, how are we going to provide electricity down there for the rodeo and all of the services?
When we installed the electricity down at Spencer's Landing originally, there's enough electricity down there that we could put on a rock concert down there and have a band and everything. So there's plenty of electricity. If there's an additional need, we do have a very, very large portable generator that we tow to various locations. So, I don't believe that the electricity is going to be an issue.
Okay, well, that's definitely obviously another cost that we have to consider. I guess my other question is restroom facilities. Have we considered that and how we're going to provide restroom facilities for upwards of 1,000 people?
Well, obviously, if we have to bring in porta potties and what have you, it'll be the same situation that we have at the Freedom Festival, where there are rows of porta potties. There are other facilities that are available, and so depending on what's available, we will provide the funding for this event. But the Friends of Vienna have already established contacts with these various vendors that can do that. And it's interesting, the comment that you made about we're doubling our contribution. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, it was $202,000 to put on the Freedom Festival. And so when the city of Vienna contributes $25,000 to an event that's $202,000, I do believe that those folks are out getting sponsorships and fundraising and what have you to pay for this event. And frankly, we as a city would never do that. Okay, it is just way too large of an endeavor for us to ever take on. So, but that's the Freedom Festival, and obviously last year it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so the Freedom Festival was cut down to 2 days this year, Friday and Saturday, and so the rodeo would be on Sunday. All right?
I understand that, and I don't think I have any concerns about that. I guess I'm concerned about the fact that we are still doubling the amount of money that we're contributing to add one day and one event. And I guess I'm also a little concerned because I believe I understand that there's only 1,000 seats in the stadium for the rodeo.
That is correct.
So I guess a couple of follow-up questions there then. If we're limiting it to only 1,000 people, that seems like a very small percentage of the overall people that would be here for the Freedom Festival. So, what are the rest of those folks going to do for that time period? Are we providing other entertainment or other events Sunday? And then also another question, for the parking, do we have enough parking for 1,000 people plus an entire rodeo at Spencer's Landing?
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess one suggestion, to bring up, I know that we're working on developing baseball fields over at Jackson Park, and that's going to require a lot of kind of groundwork and everything. And we already have restroom facilities over there and electricity over there. So would it not make sense to maybe consider putting a rodeo at the same location where we intend to put baseball fields so that we can kind of knock out two birds with one stone, and kind of till up that land and regrade it and kind of have it ready for baseball fields after the rodeo?
No. You can pick any location you would like to do this, but Spencer's Landing was chosen because of the incredible view of the river and the fact that we're trying to get people to come down and see what a really terrific area it is. There are people in there every day walking, doing things, sitting there watching the tugboats go up and down. And so the area where the park that you're referring to with the baseball fields, that area was not considered for this.
Okay, well, I think that should definitely be up for consideration, especially considering how we've passed a resolution declaring Spencer's Landing to be a recreational park, and then we still haven't really made any movement on that. And I think that it's about time that we start looking towards making some moves to make Spencer's Landing an actual park so that it can be used in the way that it currently is. People love going down there and walking and experiencing the nature and the river. I don't know that people really care to go down there to watch a rodeo and a lot of loud noise and a lot of vehicles and electricity and trucks and other things that are there. So I think it just kind of can set the city back from really developing Spencer's Landing into what everyone here has kind of voted on it being. So I guess I have a lot of concerns about that, and I don't know that it really makes sense at this time for me to kind of support this. Not that I don't support the Freedom Festival and the Friends of Vienna and all you guys do. I appreciate all the work that you guys put into this stuff. But as a city, I don't know that the benefits of hosting a rodeo at that location for that amount of money that we're contributing kind of outweighs the cost that we're going to have to put into this.
All right.
I have another question, if I may. What if it rains that day? And we can't have the rodeo?
Teresa, what is a rain out situation?
Typically in July, if there's a rain, they wait it out. The evening storm that pass through, and they want the rodeo as much as we do.
Well, I don't think there's anything typical about weather, especially today is a great example of that. I'm wearing short sleeves on February 23rd. So I don't know that we're going to have all these costs for something that can get rained out. And my other question is, if it's $15,000 to have the rodeo company come and $12,000 to rent the bleachers, that's the $27,000 that's being asked. But yet there's no discussion about, as Chris mentioned, porta potties. Porta potties to accommodate 1,000 people, I'm sure is probably $4,000 or $5,000. There's been no discussion about ambulance service. I'm sure we're gonna have to pay for that. Who the security service is gonna be? Is that gonna be the Vienna Police Department? In other words, $27,000 is kind of like the placeholder, but it's clear that there's far more expense than $27,000. And I have to agree with Chris, Mr. Mancuso, that for me, I would rather see that money be used to develop Spencer's Landing, to put some money down. For me, I think the biggest thing that could happen in Spencer's Landing to get things rolling would be to put restroom facilities down there. I mean, that's obvious. But so it's not that I don't support Friends of Vienna and what they're trying to do. I'm very appreciative that they're trying to bring good entertainment into the city. I really appreciate that. For me, the cost, it just doesn't add up. The math's not mathing for me.
May I ask a question?
You may, but let me make a statement if you would, please. The weather is unpredictable for no matter what event you put on. Last year, if you recall, the big night, the weather rolled in and it looked like Home Free was going to get stormed out, but it didn't. And so when you talk about all the other costs that are involved with this budget revision right here is the amount of money that the city of Vienna is investing with the Friends of Vienna to put on this event. We're not going to be paying for all the other things that come along. They have other avenues to raise money with this event. And so all of the other things that you're referring to are on them, not the city. And so, yes, it could rain. No argument there. That's just the way it works when you plan an event that's outside. But this amount of money that is in this internal budget revision was already in the budget. It is not new money. It is money that was allocated to put on events within the city in this year. So it is not new money. It is money that was already appropriated to the events line item. And so this is just another event that I think brings a whole nother side to entertain people and invite them to come. Yes, ma'am.
That was kind of where I was going with my question. I wanted to ask, because I was looking at the revision again. It doesn't say that it's specifically for the rodeo, correct? Like this is to Friends of Vienna, and is it kind of going in their freedom, for lack of a better word, Freedom Festival pot, where they are, the rodeo is what they're putting on. It's not being put on by the city. Is that what it?
This budget revision is entirely for the rodeo.
Okay, so it is being designated as rodeo.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And the contract with the rodeo, and I'm going to give you general numbers because I don't know the exact dollar amount. It's $15,000 for the rodeo, $12,000 to rent the bleachers. And we scoured every set of bleachers that we could come, and we don't have nearly enough seating for 1,000 people. So in order to be successful, we have to rent the bleachers. There's no other way.
Okay, but like you said, then all the other expenses outside of that for that area are being covered by Friends of Vienna out of their Freedom Festival budget, like the restrooms and all that stuff.
Everything. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Tom?
I'm not being facetious, but you can buy rain insurance.
You're right.
I don't know how expensive it is, but July is a relatively dry month. So it might be something to look into. It might be relatively inexpensive.
We'll check on that. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, then I'll call for the question.
I have one last quick question, just in kind of logistics of this, because I know you guys are still planning it out. How will the cleanup process for this work? I'm a little concerned about that as well, because I don't want to be stuck with Spencer's Landing becoming a manure field. So will the rodeo clean up everything? Will the city be responsible for cleaning that up?
We will clean when we take the dirt back off of it. That fertilizer that's in there, if there is any, was probably just going to be biodegradable. And if you have animals, you're probably going to have deposits.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's kind of where I'm concerned is I really don't want to lose the quality that is of Spencer's Landing for a one-day event. But
okay. Anything else?
Yeah, you just brought up something really good. So how do you remove the 8 inches of dirt to get back to the level to the ground where you can't then penetrate the ground any further? Logistically, how can you do that?
With a bobcat.
I understand that. I guess I should have been more specific with my question. Considering, the environmental concerns down there and the covenants and et cetera, I don't see how you can separate that 8 inches of dirt from the ground successfully without penetrating inadvertently, the ground.
Could just 7 inches be taken off or 6 inches?
That's not an issue. Take a bobcat with a flat blade on it, and this area is not that big. Okay, only the area where the arena's at is going to get the extra 8 inches of dirt. That's it.
Right, I understand that.
Okay, so it's not a huge cleanup at all.
Well, that's why I have a lot of questions about the rodeo, and like I said, I wish somebody would have provided some information. I'd like to know how big the rodeo itself is. I can appreciate it's not that big, but I don't know if it's 100 square feet or what is it?
What's the arena size, Teresa?
We need 190 by 140.
Okay. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of internal budget revision number 4, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries 3-2. So item number 2 this evening is an ordinance on first reading amending 505.06, keeping livestock. Mr. Skogstad, do you have that in front of you? Well, I believe since there were some questions brought up about the way that this was rewritten, there's only one page. If you would note the changes, just read the entire thing and then you can note the changes that you made.
All right, an ordinance amending 50506, keeping livestock and adding regulations related to raising hens on R1, R2, and R3 single-family zoned residential property, as well as related structures and the penalty for violating said regulations. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby amends the keeping livestock ordinance as follows: 50506. Keeping livestock, no person shall keep, raise, or maintain live hogs, outdoor rabbits, alpacas, cattle, or other ruminants, sheep, goats, fowl, or flightless birds other than is set out elsewhere in this code in any manner whatsoever within the city. Further, the city also enacts an ordinance governing how hens may be raised on residential property as follows: 50506A, hens on residential property. 1. Permit. A building permit from the City of Vienna is required before placing any hen house on any property. B. An annual permit from the City of Vienna is required for keeping hens on residential property. The permit shall begin on July 1st of each year and end on June 30th the following year. 2. Location. Hens may be kept on R1, R2, and R3 zone properties occupied by single-family residents only. B. The parcel must have an occupied single-family residence on site. C. This use shall be prohibited on any parcel that is unoccupied, vacant, or occupied by any multifamily unit or dwelling, or any lot having more than one single-family dwelling or unit. 3. Structure and location. A. Hens may only be kept with a hen house and enclosed pen. B. Hen houses are subject to accessory structure setback requirements. C. Hen houses, lots, and related fences shall be subject to building code requirements and applicable rules and regulations, including limitations on fence height. D. Hens and hen houses are not permitted in front yards. E. Hen houses or pens shall be situated at least 25 feet from any inhabited structure. F. Hen houses, pens, or lots shall not create a nuisance due to noise, smoke, electrical interference, dust, or obnoxious odor. G. No part of the hen house shall exceed a height of 6 feet. 4. Limitations. Ownership, care, and control of the hen shall be the responsibility of a resident, the owner of the dwelling on the lot, or both. B. A maximum of 4 hens may be kept on a lot, although health regulations may further limit the number and or manner of keeping hens. C. Keeping roosters is strictly prohibited. D. Hens must be confined to a lot. Roosters and other fowl species other than chickens are prohibited. F. The flock shall be kept for personal use only. G. Commercial raising of chickens or eggs is prohibited. H. Any dead animals or parts thereof shall be promptly and properly disposed of in a legal fashion that does not create odors or spread to other properties via wind or stormwater runoff. I. The flock shall always be confined to the parcel. J. The flock shall be confined to a hen house not exceeding 150 square feet in area during nighttime hours. K. Stored feed shall be securely stored in a container that prevents access by vermin. L. The flight feathers on at least one wing must be clipped regularly to prevent flight. M. Any person owning or keeping or harboring any hen which runs at large within the city shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and any other violation of this ordinance shall be a misdemeanor. 5. Enforcement. A. This ordinance may be enforced by the City of Vienna code enforcement official or the Vienna Police Department. 6. Variances. A. Variances may be granted by code enforcement as to structures. 7. Penalty. A. Upon conviction, the fine for a violation of this section is 1. $75 for the first offense, 2. $100 for the second offense, and 3. $125 for every violation thereafter. 4. Prior convictions may be used to enhance the penalty under this section if the date of the issuance of the previous citation or complaint is 1 year or less from the date of the current violation. If the date of the citation for the prior conviction is more than 1 year old, it is not available to enhance a subsequent offense. The changes from the ordinance as it was originally presented, starting with paragraph 1 under the permit section. Sorry, my iPad is, I'm not smart enough to work it tonight. The first is 1B. This was the annual permit. I think the question that was raised in the public comment was, what is the cost of the permit? There's not a cost here. The intent of the permit is just to allow the city to have a way to track which residents have hen houses on them, so as to help the city with their regulation. If council wants to add a permit cost, it certainly can. Many of our permits have in comparison to other cities, a nominal sum, $5, $10 for building permits and so forth. You can certainly add a cost to that. Paragraph 2A, that was changed to allow R1, R2, and R3 zone properties that are occupied by single-family residences only. Again, that goes back to the original presentation, which was the idea is that those are the houses with the lots, with the yards that are big enough to accommodate the animal, to allow the animals to, in the daytime, run somewhat free within the confines of the yard, have enough space so that, I don't know if you've ever raised chickens, but you get enough chickens in one confined area, you're not going to have a piece of grass in that confined area. But that said, a blade of grass or anything. But that said, the idea is to allow it to go to those 3 zoned areas that have single-family residences on them. As far as 4B, if my memory is correct, we increased that from 2 to 4 to allow or to take into consideration the fact that hens are flock animals, and that generally they thrive best in groups of at least 3, so 4 here. Those are the primary changes. A couple of questions that were asked is, why do you have the wings clipped? Well, despite what some people believe, chickens can fly. They're not the best, but they can get off the ground and move. And the idea was to have something that allowed people to have animals or have these hens, and also not impose upon your neighbors by modifying our fence height requirements to accommodate the animals. So if you have most of in Vienna, unless you have a side yard that abuts on a street or a front street, the fence height is limited to 36 inches. Typically, most of the height limitations throughout the city on fences that aren't front or side yards or yards that are adjacent to a street are 6 feet, not to exceed, and with any obstruction not to exceed 10 feet, so as to affect the view of the street, either to or from it. So the intent with clipping the animal's wings is, one, to be able to keep that 6-foot height requirement, and 2, recognize that some of those animals can escape, and this would make it a little more difficult for them to hop over a 6-foot fence. I think that covers roosters. I love, I grew up with chickens. I also live in town, and when this was drafted, I would walk at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I go for a walk, take the dog, and somebody had a rooster on Washington Avenue. And I just thought, I don't mind roosters. I don't mind chickens. But I also thought I'd get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock every morning. And if I didn't, I might be real irritated to hear a rooster crowing at 5 o'clock in the morning when I don't have to get up until 8 or 10. I recognize that you need a rooster to have more chickens, but the intent on this isn't farming. The intent on this is to allow people to raise hens, and hopefully some of the folks that came were here so they could teach their kids about where their food comes from. And this allows you to do that without, again, imposing on your neighbors. The idea was to create something that took into consideration both the people that wanted hens and the people that may not appreciate living next to a large flock of birds. Does anybody have any questions about the changes that were made that I can answer? If not, please.
Okay, so this item came before council at a previous meeting, and the ordinance was tabled. It is not being brought back from the table because there were substantial changes made to the ordinance in the language that Mr. Skogstad has just explained. This is coming as a new ordinance on first reading. All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the ordinance on first reading, amending 505.06, keeping livestock.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this ordinance on first reading. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, and then I would like to try to make a few separate amendments if I could. The first question I have, I know that Melissa and the mayor have sponsored this, and then I know that Russ has worked on writing it up. So in the I guess the few weeks that we've had since this was tabled, has anyone actually spoken with some of the folks that came before us that seem to have a lot more experience about hens and chickens than I do, about their input on any of the revisions to the ordinance? Just out of curiosity, because it seems like some of the things that have changed don't really address all of those. So
I have, and Chris, I don't know what we missed. I thought Russ addressed every one of the issues that was brought up.
Okay.
The only one that doesn't get addressed in this thing is that height requirement.
Variance section.
Yeah, the variance will take care of that, because not everybody here is 6 foot tall, but,
Yeah.
you know, the building permit, typically it's based on dollar amount. Well, this will have very minimal, $5.
Actually, this ordinance doesn't have any. You just have to have the permit. You just have to have a permit. You just come down and ask the city. The way this ordinance is written, there's no charge for it at all.
Okay. The second question I have is in part 4, section D and I. What's the difference between those? Hens must be on a confined lot. The flock shall always be confined to the parcel.
I don't know that there's a strong difference, and you could probably eliminate one or the other of those. I think when I was writing it, I was just trying to keep confined to a lot and confined to the parcel. I mean, I guess I could see where those could be the same thing if you wanted to amend it to eliminate one or the other.
Okay.
The idea is, part of it is, like I said, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I raised chickens when I was a kid, and we raised a lot more than 4. And I don't know that people that haven't raised chickens don't think about some of the things that come along with them, which is why the numbers are small. I know people want egg production. So I was just thinking of, my lawyer brain says parcel because that's a parcel of property, and the kid who raised chickens, I think a lot, and I think that's, where it's at. And honestly, when I wrote them, I thought of 2 different things, but I could see where you could see those as the same thing.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's where I just want to make sure that if we do this, we're very clear about some of those things. So that might be one of those amendments that I have. But I'll wait to kind of make those amendments and see if there's any other kind of discussion beforehand.
As you're gathering your thoughts about that, would you please try to present it in a format that says, I would like to remove the language,
Yes.
and I would like to insert this in its place?
Yeah.
If you would do that in that format,
Okay.
then we can do whatever your amendments are. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Further discussion?
I have a couple questions, if I may. There was a lot of discussion about the misdemeanor part of this and the difference between a civil penalty and a criminal penalty. And a misdemeanor is a criminal penalty.
Yeah, just the same way. It's a citation the same way as anything else. Is you can dress it up however you want it. If you want to call it a civil penalty, that's fine. A misdemeanor, you can call it a misdemeanor. It's fine. It's the same as if your penalties are the same. To answer a part of the question that you haven't asked, but I'm going to do it anyway. The penalties are the same as for dogs running at large. Fines the same. It's the same idea. It's just a way to enforce it. If you want to change the language to say misdemeanor to a civil penalty, practically speaking, it doesn't make a difference.
Is it necessary? Is part N necessary?
Is it necessary as a misdemeanor? Again, practically no.
Is it necessary as a penalty or necessary?
Do I think that a penalty is necessary?
No, that's not my question.
Okay.
The word misdemeanor. In other words, if I may finish, any other violation of this ordinance shall be a misdemeanor. Could that be scratched? And then because it's addressed down here under penalty, what it's going to cost, $75 first offense, $100 second offense, and so on and so forth. There was just a lot of confusion about the using of that word. I'm trying to find out if it's necessary because, I'm not suggesting removing the penalty part.
No. Okay. The answer is that's up to you. I just use the language that we use throughout the rest of the code. Anytime that the city passes an ordinance where there is a fine or a fine, or in Our code provisions allow for jail time. We don't do jail time in our city courts because it's too expensive, but we have that capability. If the city wants to start paying $50 a day to put somebody in jail, that's fine, but we have magistrate court for that. But I'm just using any time that the city creates an offense or creates a regulation, and there's a violation of that regulation, the language that is throughout our code involves it says misdemeanor. Speeding ticket, if you get a speeding ticket, that's a misdemeanor. If you get a parking ticket, that's a misdemeanor. Misdemeanor is anything that's punishable by less than a year in jail or less than up to a $2,500 fine. And that's just the generally accepted definition in the state of West Virginia. If you want to call it a civil penalty, the net effect is the same if you violate this. If it makes a difference to a person who's raising chickens, who gets a citation for raising chickens, to say that they violated it and there was a civil penalty, it really doesn't make that much difference anymore because of what the legislature has done with, getting tickets and driver's licenses. So pragmatically, I guess the difference would be in how I would collect it if it weren't paid. I would have, but I'm at the same spot with those when fines aren't paid, when fines and court costs aren't paid, I'm stuck in the same spot of having to sue to recover those. So that would be no difference. So if you want to change it because it feels better, you can certainly do that, or if it feels less onerous.
Okay, so if it were changed to civil penalty versus misdemeanor, it doesn't really affect the continuity of anything that we're...
Other than it's inconsistent with the language that's throughout the rest of our rest of our ordinances. No, it doesn't really pragmatically change anything.
Okay, and so I had another question. Under structures and location, A, it says hens may only be kept with a hen house and enclosed pen. Mm-hmm. So does a chain link fence count as an enclosed pen?
I would think it would. It says enclosed pen. You can use, that's where they get chicken wire from, right? The difference is your ability pragmatically as a person to keep the animal confined in the pen. If you've got 4 peeps out there and you've got a chain link fence, those peeps are going to go right through that chain link fence and be out running around. Banty roosters, they may be the same way. That's going to be, for purposes of our ordinance, that will satisfy the definition, I think, of an enclosed pen because you have an enclosed area. The problem you run into with using a chain link fence is, depending on the size of the animal, you may not be able to effectively keep them enclosed in that enclosure. Because like I said, Rhode Island Red is a lot different than a little banty hen in size. And I don't know how big your chain links are going to be. So if you don't have something that keeps the chickens in, you run the risk of dealing with the animal running at large issue in the rest of the statute.
Right.
But yeah, I suppose you could.
I understand that. I guess more specifically, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, you have, like, I'll just use my house, for example. I have a closed in, I have a chain link fence, I have dogs. Would I then be required, I didn't want people to have to be required to then have another pen inside of the fenced in area they already have. And then, a coop.
If I have to deal with it, that would be fine. If you got a chain link fence in the back of your yard and you put a hen house in the back corner of it, or 25 feet from wherever the next building is, and you run 2 new sections to that, I think that would, as long as the hen house is enclosed in it, that sounds reasonable to me.
So I'd like a point of clarification on that. The ordinance says you're not allowed to have one, like if it's a fenced-in yard, you're not allowed to have the chickens right up against the fence.
Well,
so how are you going to limit where the chickens run?
Hold on, let me think about that.
Because if the guy next door to you's got dogs, and you let the chickens run, you're going to create a situation right there where the dog bark, and the dog may be big enough he can jump the fence.
You know what? I've got to sit down and look at our fence ordinance because I don't remember what our fence ordinance says. The way this is written, you have to be in compliance with the rest of the fencing ordinances. So that's not fair. I may not be correct on that. As long as it complies with any pen that you build, is going to have to be in compliance with the rest of the fence ordinance.
So it's item 3, section E.
Yeah, hen houses
at least 25 feet from any inhabited structure.
Right, that's your built. Well,
our setbacks are only 5 feet, so you could conceivably be within 10 feet.
But you could also be, you could have a house in the front corner and you could have a pen in the back corner and it's 25 feet from yours or your neighbor's house and that'd be fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right. It just, you're going to have to be in compliance with the rest of the ordinances, the same as you would if you put any other structure or building out there.
So
I would think that you could, but right now that you've asked the question, I can't. I would think that you should be able to do that. I guess it depends on where it is in relation to the rest of the structures that are surrounding it.
okay. So I have another question about, you spoke about variances. Mr. DeMoss came last week and he spoke and he talked about his height and his limited ability. He has a disability. What's required for a variance? How difficult of a process is that?
Well, it's limited to structures, for one, in this ordinance. Two, you have to come down and make some type of showing as to Mr. Parrish, who is, or Mr. Flutie, who are the code enforcement officers, as to why you need a variance. And generally, it's discretionary on the code enforcement officers.
Okay, so that doesn't trigger anything through like the BZA or any, there's no other formal process? If the neighbor said, hey, I don't like that, does that kick in something and then we have to have a formal process?
I think you always have. I think you always have a due process. I think you'd always have a formal process that you would be able to go through. I think any variance could be challenged, or any denial of a variance could be challenged.
So
same as anything else that we have.
So if the structure
I guess what I'm saying is our code enforcement isn't, they're not, they don't have end all be all powers to determine something.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, so by limiting the height of the coop to 6 feet, which then if you needed it to be taller, you're going to have to come and ask for permission. Right. You could still run into a situation with a neighbor.
Yep. Yes, we run into them all the time. We run into neighbors arguing over fences. I had to go to court a month ago because neighbors were arguing over the placement of a 6-foot fence, whether it was in the front yard or the backyard.
Sure. So
it's just a thing you have to deal with.
So what is the height restriction on, like, just a shed?
I don't. Give me a second, because I don't want to say it wrong. Yeah, it just depends on the structure. Because we have different, it's helpful if you ask these questions before I come in so I have a second to answer them. Thanks. I don't have the entire codified ordinances.
I don't always know what questions I'm going to ask until I get warmed up and this stuff starts happening. So you have to be careful what you wish for.
Fair point. In my mind, in my recollection, I think there is to sheds, I think there's a 10-foot height limitation, but I don't want to hold myself to that.
Well, it may or may not be 10 feet, but every shed I see in Vienna is over 6 feet.
They generally are. And the difference, I mean, I guess to answer the question that you haven't asked is, what's the difference? Part of it is, the sheds that you're talking about that you see in Vienna that contain ladders and, lawnmowers and rakes and all that kind of stuff, you do not have a living creature that is living in those sheds, at least not intentionally, and they're not creating, right. Every now and again you get a bird that sneaks in, right, or snake. But when you have chickens and you've got them in a coop, there's nests in them, there's roosts that are in them, and you have animals that are creating, they're defecating in the shed. The idea with that is to keep the size small, so as in some respect to encourage the owners to keep those buildings clean. so that the odor from the building isn't going to have a minimal effect on the neighbors. Some folks are going to be better at cleaning these things than others. The difference in those buildings is to restrict the size of the buildings. One, you don't need a gigantic coop to raise 4 chickens. And 2 is to encourage owners to go in and make sure that their buildings are being kept appropriately so as to not bother the neighbors. If I have a building that's large and I put 2 or 3 roosts in it, and I've got 8 boxes in it instead of 4, as long as the chickens are laying, I'm not really necessarily going to be as encouraged to go out and maintain it as I would say it's a smaller building that has less area for the animals to fill up. So that's the distinction between the two, is to recognize that these structures are being used for the keeping of livestock, and to encourage the folks that are keeping livestock to keep the buildings clean, again, to allow them to balance it, to allow them to keep the animals, but also to have as minimal impact on their neighbors as they can.
Anything else? So before we go on to the motion, and if you're going to make amendments, the last comment that I would like to make is I would encourage that, and I have no idea what Chris's amendments are going to be, but I would encourage that item N, any other violation of this ordinance shall be a misdemeanor, that language be left in the code because it's clearly what is used as standard form. And myself personally, I'm tired of people sugarcoating these things. If you can't follow the rules and you have to be written up because you try to do it your way, then I believe it is a misdemeanor. And I would like that language to stay in there simply because, it is a misdemeanor and that's the way code defines it. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for the approval on first reading. No, we've already done that. Motion is done. All right. Now.
Okay, so I have, well, I guess now I have 6. So.
You have 6 amendments?
Yes.
Then we're going to do them individually.
Yeah.
You're changing too much.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott,
that's what I
would you
figured.
please write these down
That's
so we can
okay.
keep track
I'm
of that?
I will work from the top of the ordinance down. That way they're kind of
There we
in
go.
chronological order,
There we go.
if I can. The first amendment I like to make is revise part 1 for the permits. I would like to strike out section A. And then section B, I would like to be revised to state an annual $5 permit from the city of Vienna is required for keeping hens on residential property.
Okay, so now you've made 2, so we're going to have to do them one at a time. Your first one is you want to remove item A,
So 1A.
correct?
Correct.
All right, so you would like to amend it to remove item A, because if we don't do it, Chris, what's going to happen is you're either going to get all 6 of them going to get voted down, we're going to have to do it again. So if we do
Right.
them individually, then we'll know what's in or out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of this portion is in conjunction with each other, so I figured it would make sense to do these.
I think what you're getting at is the first thing you're trying to do is to get rid of the necessity for a building permit. And the second is to add a $5 charge.
Yeah.
For just having chickens in general. I think you can do those in 2 separate.
I disagree. That's 2 separate items.
That's what I said. I think you can do them in 2 separate.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So would you please state your amendment?
I would like to amend the ordinance so that part 1, section A is removed. I would like to strike part 1, section A.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the ordinance by removing section A, requiring the need for a permit,
Building permit.
the building permit,
Before placing a hen house or building a hen house.
okay? Is there any discussion on the amendment? I disagree with Mr. Mancuso's logic on this one. I believe that the requirement for the building permit should remain in place. That is how the code enforcement office determines that these things are there. And so If you read the way the ordinance is, you're required to get a building permit for any structure that's erected in your yard. And so I would want to see that the building permit be required in the ordinance as it was presented.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I wanted to clarify, because in, I guess, my now second amendment for the $5 permit, I was also going to revise Part B to say an inspection of hen houses upon initial installation shall be required to receive a permit for the first year. So essentially combining those into one section.
Okay, not to say that I don't trust you, but I'm not taking it out until it's in, if you know what I'm saying. You want $5 on it, that's great. I don't care about that. That defines it even better.
Well, the First Amendment we have is, that he's made, is to remove the section requiring a building permit to build hen houses.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's where we're at in the process.
Okay, and it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to remove the building permit required from the ordinance? Hearing none then, all in favor of the amendment to remove the building permit from the ordinance, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Well,
Please continue.
All right, so
Kim, I'm sorry, did you vote to remove it? I
Yeah,
didn't see.
I voted with
Kim and
Chris.
Chris
Okay,
and
so,
myself.
okay, I didn't see Kim.
Sorry.
All right, that's all right.
so then in that, I guess it'll be Part 1, Section A now?
However we.
Yeah. So I would like that to be restated to say an annual $5 permit from the city of Vienna is required.
Okay.
And then,
No permit shall be issued prior to code enforcement
yeah.
inspecting the hen house.
So the way I had it written was an annual $5 permit from the city of Vienna is required.
Okay.
And then the rest of it is the same. And then add a sentence toward the end of it saying an inspection of hen houses upon initial installation shall be required to receive a permit for the first year.
Inspection of hen houses shall be made prior to the issuance of a permit. Let me. All right, there it is. So you want to keep the permit shall begin on July 1st of each year and end on June 30th of the following year.
Yes.
That'd be helpful. Just need this. All right, so the amendment reads an annual $5 permit is required before placing any hen house on any property. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The permit shall begin on July 1st of each year and end on June 30th of the following year. An inspection of hen houses shall be made prior to the issuance of a permit. Is that
Yeah.
is that your amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Will you read it one more time for me, just to make sure I understand it too?
An annual $5 permit is required before placing any hen house on any property. The permit shall begin on July 1st of each year and end on June 30th of the following year. An inspection of hen houses shall be made prior to the issuance of a permit.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the ordinance as presented with the change, adding the $5 permit and the inspection of the pen by the code enforcement officers. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the amendment to Section A
under permit, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
The next amendment I would like to make is under Part 3,
Okay.
Section E. I would like to revise that to say hen houses or pens shall be situated at least 20 feet from a neighbor's inhabited structure or 10 feet from any inhabited structure on the property.
So hold on, which one are you amending again?
3E.
Section
3E.
3.
Okay.
Please state it again, Chris. I'm sorry, I didn't understand if you said inhabited or uninhabited. So
Yeah.
please,
Start from the beginning.
Yeah, hen houses or pens shall be situated, and then at least 20 feet from a neighbor's inhabited structure or 10 feet from any inhabited structure on the property.
okay, I'm sorry, I'm still having difficulty. I can't understand what you're saying. Are they both inhabited structures?
Yes,
So 20 feet from a neighbor, 10 from your own?
correct.
Okay.
So you want to change it to read, hen houses or pens shall be situated at least 20 feet from a neighbor's inhabited structure or 10 feet from any inhabited structure on the property. Let's, on the property, okay. How about on the owner's property?
Sure.
Does that work? All right,
Yeah.
so hen houses or pens shall be situated at least 20 feet from a neighbor's inhabited structure, or 10 feet from any inhabited structure on the owner's property. Does that make sense?
Not to me, it doesn't, but that's Mr. Meeks.
Does that make sense?
I mean,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
we have a motion to amend it. Section 3, item E.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we amend Section 3, item E. What difference does it make if it's your hens, how far you put it from your own house?
Well, because the way the ordinance is written right now, it says it's a requirement to be 25 feet from any inhabited structure.
It does.
So you would be required to have it at least 25 feet from your own house. And I know that some of the residential properties, if you do that, you're at your backyard of your neighbor and you can't really have a hen house. So my thinking here was to kind of shrink some of those sizes down and make it a little more accessible for people that might have a smaller backyard.
Okay, I mean, I think that's a perfectly logical thing. Again, don't understand what the difference is between, why do you want it to be 10 feet away from your own home?
Well, I mean, we can strike that entirely and just keep.
Well, hold on, we have an amendment
Yeah.
we have amendment.
No, I just want to know what its logic
No, I,
is.
Well, I guess because my assumption was that the way it was originally written, it required a minimum of 25 feet away from any inhabited property,
yeah,
inhabited building, period.
your house or the neighbor's house, it had to be at least 25 feet from them.
Okay, we have dog pens in house that people put right off their back steps so they don't have to walk out in the yard. I mean, that's okay, if that's the way you
No,
want it
that-
to say.
Well, the way this current ordinance was written states that hen houses or pens shall be situated at least 25 feet from any inhabited structure.
Yeah, so you'd have to have 25 feet from your house and 25 feet from the neighbor's house.
I got it.
Right.
And he wants to change it to 20, which is fine.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, let it go. I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so,
It's got to be at least 20 feet. So hen houses or pens shall be situated at least 20 feet from a neighbor's inhabited structure and 10 feet from any inhabited structure on the owner's property.
okay.
Okay.
That's the amendment.
Yes.
Yep.
It's not been seconded yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kim seconded.
Gotcha. All right. So then is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the amendment changing the restriction from 25 feet to 20 and 10 from any inhabited structure, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay. All right. Motion carries unanimously, amendment carries unanimously.
The next amendment, I guess, I would like to make is to go ahead and strike out in Part 4 limitations. Just go ahead and strike out item D.
So strike 4D.
Or D, hens must be confined to a lot. Yeah, I understand.
I'm sorry.
He,
B or D?
D as in dog.
D as in dog, thank you.
Second.
All right, and you just want to remove that?
Yeah.
All right, so fine. The amendment here is section 4, item D as in dog, removing hens must be confined to a lot. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the amendment, removing hens must be confined to a lot, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Also in part 4, section B, in regards to the number of hens, I would like to change that a little bit.
4B.
4B as in boy.
For a few reasons, I would like to change that so that there's an option to have additional hens after the first year, just because I know that people are concerned about the limiting number of hens and how hard it would be to kind of increase that with any kind of variance or anything. So I would just like to say that to insert after the maximum of 4 hens is permitted during the first year of a permit, and then state additional hens may be permitted pending approval following an inspection after the first year.
So do you want to put
Approval by who?
Well, it would be the city who gives the permit to have the hens, so.
It won't work. If it says 4 in here, the ordinance has to tell you what you can have in the second year. Okay? It can't be code enforcement decides that you had 4, now you get to have 6.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
After the first year, the number of hens may be increased to.
No help.
Gotcha.
It's Mr. Mancuso's amendment.
You start from the beginning.
Yeah, so a maximum of 4 hens is permitted during the first year of a permit. And then additional hens up to 8 may be permitted pending approval following inspection after the first year.
I guess
Who makes that decision?
So I guess the code enforcement would come out essentially to make sure.
Guidelines to use. That's just a matter of his judgment.
Well, I mean, the idea there is that there would be a way that the city can come out and say, yes, you are being responsible with your hens. Your neighbors aren't complaining about it. We haven't received any complaints. Great, have some more hens, and because you need them or want them. That's kind of the intent of my amendment there.
So you don't want an objective standard? Like what you have is a subjective standard and it's contingent upon the only objective criteria that you're saying is that you've not had any complaints from the neighbors, which leaves the rest to be subjective. Do you want to add in any additional objective standards aside from the complaints in your amendment?
While you think about that, let me tell you the number one complaint that comes to code enforcement. Well, you let them do it, why can't I do it? Okay? And that's the issue that you run into because a guy may have a very nice, clean operation, keeps his hens in the pen and does all that stuff. And you can say, okay, you're handling 4, there have been no complaints, we see no reason why you couldn't. On the other hand, you got a guy that you chase every day with him getting loose, it's a mess. And he says, you let him do it, why didn't I get to do it? And that's not a situation that we want to put him in.
Okay, yeah, I understand. So I guess maybe to have some kind of an objective judgment call, essentially it would be that there were no complaints or no violations of said ordinance.
I think it was originally written for 4. Let's keep it at 4. We're not encouraging chicken farming.
It can be revisited in another year if there's no issues. Okay?
If his amendment doesn't pass, can another amendment regarding this be made?
Well, yeah, I don't see why
Yeah,
not.
so
Okay, all right.
So right now, the amendment, as I understand it, is to amend the language to say a maximum of 4 hens may be kept on a lot, although health regulations may further limit the number and/or manner of keeping hens. After the first year, the number of hens may be increased to 8 if there have been no complaints by any neighbors.
Yeah.
That's your amendment, Chris?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we increase the number of hens on section 4, item B to 8. I agree with Mr. Azinger. I do not believe at this time, since we're just getting this program off the ground, that it should be increased to 8. I think there's too much leeway in there, and you open yourself up for comparisons and arguments, and it's just not, I mean, I'll revisit it in a year if when nobody complains and everybody's happy. But right now, to start out, I want to leave it at 4.
And if I could just comment on the legal part of it, the standard that you have in that being just there being no complaints, one of the biggest issues that code enforcement and to some degree law enforcement deals with, particularly in noisy dogs or any other animal related complaint, is you'll get a call. The neighbor will say, "Man, you got to come down here. Bob's dog is just going crazy," and then code enforcement or our former Humane Society officers would go down and they say, "Well, we didn't hear the dog barking." And then the neighbor says, "Well, that dog barks all the time." In order for the officer to do something like write a citation or whatever, it's going to require that neighbor to come in to court. And you have a lot of unwillingness for people to come in because you live next door to somebody. You don't want to cause them a lot of trouble. You just want the dog to stop barking. And so if they have 4 chickens, it's very difficult to enforce those unless you have neighbors that are willing to cooperate.
Yeah.
And that, I just want to point that out, with the standard being there being no complaints by any neighbors. You're going to have a lot of times where you're going to have 4 animals and then 8 animals. And if your criteria is that there are no complaints, you're going to have neighbors that are just going to be suffering through this. And well,
No, I understand. And maybe that was, I guess, the goal of that amendment was to try to make sure that we can have an opportunity for people who are doing a good job and raising hens and, doing a good thing, have the opportunity to continue to do that.
And
Yes, sir.
If you had 8 hens and they laid 8 eggs a day, that's 56 eggs a week. You're just supposed to be raising these hens to lay eggs for your own consumption and not for any commercial benefit. So I don't know many families would eat 56 eggs a week. And if they are, they're getting too much fat.
now slow down.
I have to say, I agree with Tom again on this thing because, 4 hens are not going to be very noticeable. Okay, if you put 8 hens out there, I don't care how many eggs you're getting. That's a lot of activity, and I'd just like to start with 4 and let's see how this thing goes.
That's 3 dozen eggs a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your amendment as it is wants to increase item 4, section B, a maximum of 8 hens may be kept on a lot.
Well, a maximum of 4 hens may be kept on a lot. The regulations about the health language. After the first year, the number of hens may be increased to 8 if there have been no complaints by any neighbors. That's the amendment.
Is that how you care to leave it?
It's been seconded.
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And when we want, is there any further discussion? Hearing none then, all those in favor of the amendment as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Mr. Azinger,
Sir?
are you for it or against it, sir?
Again.
Okay, so that one fails, Chris.
Yeah.
Right.
Before you move on, may I make an amendment to that then, since we can revisit it?
Yes.
I would like to change 4B to read a maximum of 6 hens may be kept on a lot, although health regulations may further limit the number and or manner of keeping hens. And I think that kind of
So change 4B limitation